Chapter 1, Section 6, Biotalk, Succession. The destruction of a mature forest by a severe fire is a devastating scene. Yet, even this charred scene holds promise of new life. Within a few weeks, the ground will slowly turn green as annual and perennial plants return. These plants can tolerate full sunlight and the resulting high soil temperatures. They take root, grow, and reproduce in a soil made fertile by the mineral content of the ash. Within 2 or 3 years, shrubs and young trees are evident and growing rapidly. A few years later, as an untrained observer would probably never know that the area had once been burned out. Over the long term, the forest will again reach maturity. This pattern is not limited to forests. It occurs in many other environments. This process of regrowth follows an environmental change. It is called succession. It describes the gradual change in an area. The change takes place as the area develops toward a final stable community. In every case, the final community that can exist is determined by the abiotic factors of the area. Here's the picture, and then here's the caption. Forest fires are one of the most destructive natural forces known. While sometimes caused by lightning, 9 out of 10 forest fires are caused by humans. Natural occurring fires are vital in maintaining healthy ecosystems. However, human-caused fires have devastating effects on both wildlife and human lives. There are 2 types of succession: primary and secondary succession. Primary succession occurs in an area where no other community existed before. For example, this could happen on land left behind by a receding glacier. It could also happen on a newly formed volcanic island. Secondary succession occurs following destruction of a community. The regrowth after a forest fire is an example of secondary succession. Since soil is already present, the long time needed for soil to form in primary succession is not necessary. Primary succession occurs on rock left behind by retreating glaciers and transforms it into a living community. The process must begin with organisms that form organic soil, the pioneers or soil builders. This soil will be necessary to provide for the next group of plants to succeed. After a forest fire, a sequence of ecological responses begins. Amid the charred forest remains, a pioneer community is established. So they're calling the pioneer community, in this case, they're calling it the newer plants that grow after the fire. And then in this case, the soil builders, okay, the pioneers or soil builders, which are the organisms that form organic soil. So, pioneer community is the first species to appear during succession. Seral stages, the communities in between the pioneer and climax community during the stages of succession, and climax community, the final, quite stable community reached during the stages of succession. And they'll expand on that more within the reading. Each community goes through a succession of plant and associated animal species. The first community to appear is the pioneer community. It includes plants that are able to tolerate sunlight and the resulting high temperatures. This development of vegetation sets up new ground level conditions. Eventually, conditions become more favorable to other plants that cannot tolerate full sunlight. These plants tend to be taller than the pioneer plants. This process continues through several in-between communities called the seral stages. The plants and animals and their wastes at each stage contribute to the community development until a final community is reached. This final community is the one that can continue to perpetuate itself. It is called the climax community. Generally, both the biomass and the non-living organic matter increase during stages of succession. They then level off when the climax community is reached. The climate, plant, and animal life, biota, vary greatly by area. The types depend upon the temperature and rainfall patterns.